Trash talking is the most creative strategy to get inside your opponent's head. And let's just say that some trash talkers in the UFC are far superior to others. From the time he called Nate Diaz a little slapper to leaving panties on Jose Aldo's door, let's start with McGregor, the biggest name in disrespectful, trashy talk. The Notorious and Diaz have one of, if not the biggest rivalries in the UFC. Their fights in 2016 were two of the most popular UFC pay-per-views ever. And since then, both men have never missed a single chance to go after each other. And I mean that literally. Last year, when Conor saw an ad for Dana White's Power Slap League, the Notorious took this as an opportunity to take digs at Nate. Now, Diaz is famous for his Stockton slap, and McGregor took this opportunity to say that the two should fight for the title in the slapping contest, just so the little slapper could have a chance at winning. Yikes. But the little slapper, Diaz, did not hold back either. He made sure to remind McGregor that he had already won against him once. It's always great to see these two at each other's throats, especially since the Irishman is not known to hold back, even when he's trash talking. So imagine when he admitted that the trash talk went too far. Yes, I'm talking about the time Khabib became the target of the Notorious. The Irishman called Khabib mad, backward, and a buzz at parties for refusing to drink. So much for freedom of choice, right? But it didn't end there. McGregor even claimed that he'd turn his rival into a bobblehead. Conor is something else when he's trash talking. And if that wasn't enough, the Irishman took to Twitter to say how the coats he wears are made from the fur of the Russians' pets, and he only wears them once before discarding them. He did eventually realize that he had gone too far, but in classic Conor fashion, said that it was what it was and there was nothing else to it. The Irish fighter even insisted that the rivalry between the two is personal. Speaking of something personal, McGregor has some personal ties to Jose Aldo. And well, the former rivals may have found some common ground. Conor and Aldo's rivalry began back in 2015. It almost ended when McGregor defeated the Brazilian, winning the featherweight title at UFC 194, but this is McGregor we're talking about. Trash talk is bound to follow. During the verbal sparring that took place in the lead-up to the fight, McGregor stood out. No surprise though. In a video clip, McGregor could be seen throwing darts at a board depicting Aldo. Not once, not twice, but multiple times, supposedly hitting the target, Aldo, on the head. McGregor later yelled that if he hit him right there, it would be over for the Brazilian. You got to love it when Conor makes these threats. He even said that he owned Rio once. Like, come on, Conor, take a seat. You'd think things just went on to be worse from there, right? Well, surprisingly, no. After the 13-second knockout by McGregor at UFC 194, Aldo ended up defeating Frankie Edgar at UFC 200. And what did McGregor do about it? The Irishman left a special gift for Aldo at his house: a pair of bright red panties. You might ask, why? Well, that's just how Conor decided to pay his respects. And luckily, Aldo understood the assignment, and the two are good friends now. But if he hadn't, it could have reignited a former spark. Even though Conor might be one of the most disrespectful trash talkers right now, he's not the only one. In fact, this next fighter can give him a run for his money. I'm talking about the outlaw, Dan Hardy. It could be said that he's always been better on the mic than on the mat. After only 4 wins in the UFC, he was rushed to a title fight with welterweight king Georges St-Pierre. But I have to wonder, was he given the chance to fight for the title against one of the best pound-for-pound fighters because he won 2 questionable split decisions, knocked out Rory Markham, and beat Mike Swick, a journeyman? Or was it his bad language? Yeah, it was definitely the trash talk. Hardy was known for asking his fans to Photoshop pictures of his upcoming opponents, and before their fight in UFC 99, Hardy proudly showed Markham in the homophobic edits at the press conference. To say Markham was unhappy would be an understatement. Hardy talked a lot of trash about Georges St-Pierre and Carlos Condit before they beat him. Every time he went out to promote the fights, he talked more trash. This guy is something else. And as a trash talk fan, I've always liked Hardy. He was basically fan service with all the drama he cooked up. But compared to the next fighter, even Hardy would take a back seat. Let's talk about the infamous Nathan Donald Diaz. Yep, his middle name is actually Donald. Anyway, based on his recent achievements, I think Nate should be higher on the list. He was never much of a talker, preferring instead to get in his opponent's face, refuse to touch love, mean mug, and flex on them, and then drop a Stockton slap on them for good measure. Maybe it's the awareness that fights are good for business on social media, and he is not an internet fighter in my eyes. Rather, he's a real soldier who faces real danger on the battlefield. So it was both shocking and amusing to see Diaz trash talk Conor. Nate said, "You're playing a touch butt with that dork in the park," in response to footage of Conor McGregor exercising in the park. But a social media post from Diaz is an entirely different animal. Diaz is not shy about engaging in social media trash talk, whether it is with Conor McGregor, Khabib, who he called Kebab by the way, or any other lightweight or welterweight opponent. The dude literally trash talked back to Conor McGregor on Twitter. Trash talking in MMA might seem like a men's thing, but this next fighter proves otherwise. And that's the rowdy Ronda Rousey. She was as well known for her hatred of her opponents as Ronda was for knocking them out in the first round of their fights. In fact, only one of Rousey's 12 career victories went beyond the first round. It's quite a big accomplishment for the judo gold medalist. Her skills, coupled with her demeanor on the mic, were likely responsible for her smooth transition from mixed martial arts to professional wrestling. At UFC 193, Rousey criticized her opponent, Holly Holm, aka the Preacher's Daughter, for putting on a false sweet act. Rowdy said that she saw straight through it, and it's all a sham, and even went as far as to say that she'd received the real thing during their bout. Many believe that Rousey disregarded Holm as a serious challenger to her women's bantamweight championship, because she declared in a pre-fight interview that on Monday morning after she beat Holly, she's going to look around and it's going to be an amazing feeling. That arrogance, however, was very short-lived. In the end, Holm went on to hand Rousey her first ever mixed martial arts defeat by knocking her out in the second round. That must have hurt. But Rousey has always saved her most nasty statements for her main rival, Miesha Tate. She said that Tate's chink in her armor was that she never looked her in the eye, and that she has everything that Tate wanted in life. It was Rousey's unrestrained and raging disgust for her competitor, Cupcake Tate, that helped make their rivalry one of the most heated in women's MMA history. That's all the trash talking for today. See you in the next video.